Hey everybody, what's good? What's going on? JB here with another CyberInsight live stream. It's Friday. Celebrate as much as you can. We're going to be doing another Linux lab live walkthrough. So another adventure in Linux, as a lot of people are kind of interested in these topics, and I'm going to, try and walk through some things. Hopefully, teach you some things, make it a little entertaining, and we can kind of go from there. As I mentioned, since it is Friday evening, if you do happen to want to grab some type of beverage, whatever you want to go with, then that is awesome as well. Because here it's after 7 now, so might as well get into it. I'm trying to think anything else I want to hit before that. Not really. We're just gonna go over and jump in. We're using Ubuntu just like we did last time, and today we're going to be talking about processes and jobs and services and all sorts of other fun stuff, how to manage those, how to monitor them, all that goodness. So, yeah, as always, smash the like button, subscribe, all that other stuff you already know to do. So let's hop over into my VM real quick. And I think before we kind of get into the actual lab itself, it probably is worth kind of covering what some of these terminologies mean between processes and services and things like that, just so we're kind of all on the same page, especially if you haven't had any background with Linux before. I think that it's kind of worth covering so we're all on the same page. So when we're talking about services and processes, really the first thing is understanding that a service in Linux is actually also called a daemon. And what that is it's some type of client or server application that runs in the background. So it's there, it's doing things. You really don't know that it's there, except for the fact that everything that you're doing is working. And you don't need to interact with it. It just starts up, does what it needs to do, and you just press on, and you're good with that. The flip side of that is something called a process. And a process is simply an application or a script which can be running either in the foreground or the background. So kind of like the service running in the background as well. An easy way to explain a process, and it's something that we've all run into an awful lot, is web browsers, right? And especially we all know that Chrome absolutely sucks whenever you have more and more tabs open, right? So Chrome in itself is an application. But every time that you go and you pop open a new tab, in essence, what you're doing is spinning up a new process of Chrome to be able to do all the stuff that it needs to do. And as you continue to do that, then the amount of memory that your computer is using starts to spike up into the point where you have some type of Chrome tab death spiral because you have like 50 things open. So I think those are kind of two different terms that we're going to use a bit as we kind of go through the labs, but I kind of wanted to make sure they was flushed out. So yeah, services and processes. All right, we got some folks coming in to the chat here. Might as well throw them up here real quick before we actually jump in. Let's see. Hey Liz, what's going on? And let me move that. Let me move this because that's actually a little annoying. We'll add that there. Hey Kiki, what's up? And L, hey. Hope you got your drink. I got mine. I got a French gimlet. I figured I would get a little crazy, I guess, but I had some gin and I had some what is it? Elderflower liquor, and I didn't have any limes though, so that kind of sucked. So I had to just use some lime seltzer, but it'll do what it needs to do. All right. So let us hop over into the actual command line and we can start talking about the things that we're going to talk about. So first thing is talking about these processes that that start up whenever you boot up a Linux box. And there's two different ways that we can go about managing the startup processes. One is an old way, and that's with something called SysVInit, or sometimes called init. And the other is with something called systemd. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at how these config files are there, the way they're laid out, and kind of talk about what they're doing a little bit. So first off, we're going to look at init, which is the old school one. We've moved on to onto systemd for the most part, but there's still files that init has there, and they kind of work together a little bit sometimes, but there also is some separation between them. So if we want to go and we want to look at the init files, we're going to go into etc and then initd. And what we see here is a whole bunch of different files for scripts that tell you or tell your box how to start, stop, and run these different services that we have, right? So you see different things in here: cron, OpenVPN, rsyslog. So digging down into these, there's a whole bunch of different scripts that pretty much say, you know, when to start it up, what to do when it starts, you know, points it to different file locations, things like that. We don't necessarily need to go in and look at any of these because that would, you know, take an awful lot of time going into all these different things. But it's just important to understand that. Oh, hold on a second. Just had a question come in. Jeff, I'm going to get you here in a second because that's a good question. It's important to understand that there are scripts that start up at the beginning whenever you boot up the box, and it's important to know where they are. And that's kind of the gist of this. So a good question just came in, and that is systemd the same as system controller, systemctl? Yes, so the systemctl commands are derivative out of systemd. So yes, they are. I don't necessarily want to say that they're the same exact thing because I'm probably going to jack up the terminology there, but the systemctl commands are what you use when you're doing stuff with systemd. How about that? All right. So the other interesting thing with these scripts is that they correlate to different run levels, right? So run levels dealing with like when the system boots up, when the system has problems, different things like that. So we can actually see which ones of these scripts correlates to different run levels. If we go ls, L capital R, and we're going to go etc, and then we're going to go rc, and then that wildcard there is going to match everything. All right, and so if we look at this, let's scroll up to the top, and we can see, so RC0, RC1. The one that's really interesting to us is RC5 because that's the default boot level, or the default boot run level. So when everything's working good and we actually boot up the PC or the server, then these are all of the different scripts that run when that happens. And you'll also notice, as we kind of look through here, you might see some stuff. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to hit with that. We'll talk about symbolic links later on. If we look at run level 0, that's whenever something is wrong with your server and it gets halted. So we can see a much smaller group of scripts that are running there. So that might have to do with, you know, when you're shutting stuff down, when stuff goes to crap. Let's see. So that was init. And like I said, that's kind of been, I won't say it's been completely deprecated. It's still in use. It's still there. But really, everything is moving over and migrating to systemd. There's been a bunch of optimizations that's happened with it. Also, the purpose with it is that it also speeds up your boot time. So as we move forward, that's really kind of what you'd be focused on learning about. So if we want to do that, we can do and look at the scripts that systemd is running. So kind of the same thing, but with systemd. We go systemd list. let's see, list unit files and state equals enabled. So these are ones that are enabled. Now, let's see, where did I mess that up? Oh, yeah. The same thing that we were just talking about. Systemd, systemctl. So we have all of these different services that have scripts that are enabled to run at startup, right? Let's see, we can get out of that. We'll Control C. Let's look at one of these scripts. They actually call these unit files. So let's take a look at a unit file. We can look at the one for our syslog. So we'll go cat lib let's see. Let's see, where am I at? Okay. Okay, let's go count. Let's just see if we are. Yep. Systemd, and then system, and then our syslog, I think is what I said we were going to take a look at. Syslog service, right? And then, so this is the unit file, or in essence, the script of our syslog for whenever the device, whenever your Linux server boots up. So it kind of has a little bit of description, some requirements, some places you can go for documentation, and a few other different types of configurations. Restart on failure, right? So in essence, our syslog is always going to be running, and it should always be running. So another thing that we can do with that, so looking at our syslog, if you aren't familiar with what it is, it's actually for logging. So it's kind of your syslog that the server is using. So if we actually want to take a look at the logs that we have within the box that our syslog is managing and collecting, then we can do a few different things. We can do a journal ctl xe. Oh, it doesn't like that because it's not there. Okay. Unless I spelled that wrong, which I did. There we go. And so we're able to kind of see some of the syslog events here. Now, those of you who might have done a little bit of stuff with Linux before, you might also be familiar with var log, which is also where that stuff will go. So we can actually go, let's just tail the last 50 messages in var log. The tail command, if you're not familiar with it, is gonna go to the bottom of the log, and we're gonna look at the last 50 that are in there. Let's see, var log. Oh wait, let's look at a specific log. I think it was a var syslog is what I want to look at, but let's take a look. Or var log ls. Yeah, let's take a look at syslog. So tail. There we go. So now we can see the same thing. We're able to see the log messages that are coming in from our syslog. And we got the last 50 that came in. So that's also important. Good to know this stuff when you're troubleshooting. You're trying to see what's going on in the box. You know where you can go to look at different things that are happening. So I think that is pretty much it for the startup stuff. So as far as the box starting up, you understanding that there's scripts that come, or scripts that are there that come up whenever the box comes up and starts different types of services. That's kind of just the basic gist of all of that. So let's move over to some more stuff with systemd, since that's really the main thing and the important thing to do. So if we want to take a look at whether whether or not a service is running, then there's a few different commands that we can do with systemctl. And we're looking at our syslog, so let's keep going with that. Status r syslog. Okay, so a few different things out of here that's interesting to know. So it's active, it's loaded, and it's active and it's running, right? And we can see when was the last time that it was started up, right? A really, really important thing is this process ID. And this will come up a lot in Linux as you're both troubleshooting, monitoring, and managing things, is this number. And pretty much this particular instance of our syslog is tied back to this process ID. So you can look based off of this process ID to see what it's doing. You also, if you wanted to kill this process or stop this process or pause this process, then it's good to know this ID number so that you can actually just use that in your commands to end up doing whatever it is that you want to do to the process. Another interesting thing is it also will put some of the logs related to the service kind of in here when you do a systemctl status. Let's see. So to kind of show what that does as far as like updating that, so we can go ahead, we can restart a process. So we'll restart the our syslog. So in order to do that, we normally need to sudo. So we're going to go sudo systemctl restart our syslog. It's going to ask for my password. Okay. Now we should be able to check the status of our syslog again. And you'll see now it's only been up for 9 seconds. And you'll also see that we have all these starting log messages and stuff like that of it coming up. And we see that the PID has changed. Remember before it was 770, now it's 4436. So kind of useful information to understand with that when we're looking at that. Let's see my notes. What else do we want to hit with that? I think that's pretty much that. There's a few other things that we can do when we want to see, if a process is running. There's a few different commands. There's a command called top. And this kind of gives you some interesting information as far as the performance that's going on your box, different PIDs. You're able to see the processes that are going, how much memory they're using, and stuff like that. You can also use the PS command. And I think PS-A will show all of them. And so if you were looking for a particular one, like let's say we didn't know what the PID was for our syslog, we could go PS-A grep our syslog, right? And there we go. Because we were able to grep for this particular string, we were able to match on that, and then we're able to find out what the PID is, so 4436. Cool. All right, I think the next thing that I want to talk about was how you can have jobs be either in the foreground, so something that you're interacting with, or you can move them into the background. and they kind of can be there running, and you don't need to have a screen up or a terminal up watching how all that stuff is going. So before we hop into that, does anybody have any questions or comments at this point? I'm gonna take a drink. Okay, if nobody has any questions or comments, then we will go ahead and press on with that. So in this next one, I'm going to use a command called sleep. And what sleep does when used with other commands is it will pretty much pause the action of the following command for a certain period of time. So for instance, if you were writing a script and you were going to have it do action A, but you wanted to have the next action, action B, wait for 30 seconds, you can use the sleep command for 30 seconds and the other action, the action B, to kind of give you a little bit of a pause for a second. So we're going to go sleep. We'll go 10,000. Okay, and then I'm going to control Z. And when you control Z, what you're doing is you're stopping, you're pretty much stopping that process from happening. What does stop mean? Really, stopping is just pausing. That's all you're doing. So what we can do here is we can take a look, use a jobs command, and that will show us all the jobs that we have running, all the processes that we have running here, and we just see that the one that we have running is sleep, and it stopped. All right. We can then take that and use the background command, and that's going to move it into the background. This little ampersand sign here actually indicates that it goes into the background. And we'll see that that's now updated there. So we could go ahead and do, other things. And then if we hit foreground for FG, then you see it brings it back into the foreground, and we're kind of here again where I don't have my prompt anymore, right? We're just in here where I started to run the service, but you see my command prompt is gone. So let's go ahead and hit Control C and stop that. And that was done. Because Control C is going to cancel the job versus Control Z, which stopped it or paused it. Okay. Let's see what else we can do with that. That's kind of interesting. So if we go sleep 10,000 ampersand, right? And this is going to do that sleep, but it's going to put it in the background. Right, and we see that it's there. If we do jobs, we see that it's running. But let's say I go ahead and I exit my terminal. And I bring my terminal back up. And let me make this big enough again for you. Okay, and I go jobs. It's not there, right? It didn't persist. So even though we're running it in the background, when I closed out the terminal, it killed the job. So what can we do to make it so that if we close out the terminal, it will still stay there and persist? We can use a command for no hang up, and then go sleep 10,000 again, and the ampersand. Right, we can see jobs. We see that it now has the no hang up, and it's in the background. We're able to do stuff. If I close this out, go back in, make it big again. All right, and then go jobs. Oh no. Did I? Must have to keep the job running after close the shell. Let me try that again. Sleep 1,000%. I swear this worked when I tried it earlier today. Oh, what am I doing? I must be doing something that's jacking that up for some reason. Because I swear that the... let's see, ps.ef... Yeah, okay. My bad. It's not running under the jobs anymore, but when I actually go, I can see that it is running here. I'm sorry. So it was working correctly, and I actually did it twice now. But we can see that it has separate processes that are running in the background. I closed out the terminal. It's still there running. So let's go ahead and we can get rid of those because we actually don't need those. So like I mentioned, we can go kill and then the specific PID. So we can go 4501, kill 4535. And then if we run this again, looking at the sleep, then the only thing that's running that matches the text for sleep is my grep command. So cool. So kind of another interesting thing. Sometimes you might be doing some type of maintenance. Excuse me. Sometimes you might be doing some type of maintenance, and you need to have your terminal session open, but then you might need to actually have another window or another process, foreground process running at the same time, but while you're doing other stuff. And there's a way to actually kind of split that out, and there's a few different tools you can use to do that. One is called Screen, and the other is called tmux. And I'll show you how to use Screen. It's pretty straightforward. You might need to install it on your Linux box, depending upon what version you're using. But pretty much, you just go Screen. And I want to say, let me pull up some notes on this real quick, because I actually was looking at something earlier today. Screen Linux command cheat sheet. That was pretty cool. So one thing that I thought when looking at this was giving your screen a session name. So that way, you know what it is that you're kind of jumping back and forth. So it'd be screen. We'll just call it JVC. I think that was a uppercase. Yep. Okay. And then if you want to detach from that, it's Control A and then D. So let's go, we're gonna go ping, I don't know, let's go www.cnn.com. Right, we're just gonna let this run. And it was Control AD. Let's make sure that we got that. Control. Okay. You see now it says detached from screen, right? So that's still going on somewhere else, even though we're back to this other terminal view at this point. So if we wanted to actually see what we had going on as far as the screens that we had set up, we can go screen-ls, right? And And we see that this other one that we created, that was doing what we needed to do. If we want to get back into that, we can go screen-R, and then we're able to get back into it. So kind of interesting. I see this used more when, let's say, you're SCPing a very large file, or you're doing some type of operations or management types of jobs that require you to maintain that interaction and require it to be up, but you still need to be able to go and do other things. Then that's where I've seen folks use the screen command the most. So we can get out of that, right? And then I could kill the PID on that, but I am wondering if there is another command to kill it. There might not be. Yeah, I'm not seeing. Well, we can just kill the PID then. 4683, I think that. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Okay. Let's see. That was foreground and background jobs. Tmux is pretty much very similar. We're able to do the same thing. The next thing I wanted to talk about was automated tasks, and using something called Cron, which if you've had any experience with Linux before, you've probably heard that terminology. But if anybody has any questions at this point before I hop into that, let me know. I'm getting thirsty. All right, so cron is a way to schedule automated tasks. And automated in the way where it's going to be stuff that you're going to want to continuously be doing. So maybe it's something that you want to run every hour on the hour, or maybe it's something that you want to run every Sunday, or maybe it's something that you want to run the first of every month. Some type of job or script that's important that your Linux box needs to do, and you need to have some way to make sure that that script is run. And cron is a very easy and simple way to go about doing that. So let's go and take a look at, we're going to cat etc crontab. And let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger so you can kind of see that. I think that should still look okay on the screen. And it probably fits a little bit better. Okay. So in this file, you're going to see a few different rows of commands. The first 5 columns designate the minute, the hour, the minute, which comes over and goes down here. The minute, the hour, the day of the month, or the day of the week. And depending upon what you have set up here, then it's going to do different things. So like this, for instance, looks like at the 17th minute of every hour, then root is going to run this command, which in essence looks like it's doing some things and doing a report. And then this looks like something that happens for a daily report. And then this, as you can see here, is on Sunday, or number 7. That's going to be a weekly report. And then here is going to fall into the first day of every month. It's going to do a monthly report. Right? Let's see if there's anything else that's kind of in there. Like I mentioned, you'll see the user that's actually running the particular command to be executed. If you want to learn any more on cron, and specifically the way that you configure these things or stuff like that, you could do the the man 5 cron tab. Let's see, cron tab, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, although sometimes people don't necessarily like reading all the way through all of this, so you could very easily just go in and do a Google search on this where that will kind of help break it down a little bit easier. Let's see. Okay. So let's take a look at something else. This is within Ubuntu Cron. We're going to take a look at, I'll show you here. So this is kind of a neat way, just this command that I'm doing here, where if you want to actually look within different directories, but you have a whole bunch of different files or directories that you're trying to do, you can list them out, and we're gonna get the output from all of this. You'll see here in a second. Monthly D, and it kind of breaks it out nice here. So under cron D, these are directories that hold jobs that run at given intervals. So under the daily, these are all jobs that run daily. So you see some depackage stuff, log rotate, which is important. Nothing under hourly, monthly, weekly. So that's kind of cool. And like I said, this is kind of this command here and doing stuff like that in between the brackets or braces, I'm not sure what they're called, can be pretty helpful as far as kind of laying stuff out when you have multiple directories that you're trying to get stuff from. Let's see. On some systems, there's user-based cron tabs. So if I go cron tab -L, initially this wasn't here for me. So if there isn't anything here and you do that, you can go ahead and you can create one. And you just would go cron tab -E, and it pretty much would have all of this except for this last line. So I think we talked about this before, that the # is a way to make it so that lines within scripts aren't read, right? So this actually was a real command that I was using before, but I put a # in front of it so that way that the cron tab doesn't actually read that as something that it needs to do. So let's go -E. Okay, here we go. Now we are, what are we under? Okay, so let's get rid of that. Okay, and so what we're doing with this is it's going to print out the date, and it's going to send it to a file called foo in my home directory. It's going to do a date statement, pretty much. So we can exit out of that. And we're going to save it, yes. And file name, yes, that's cool. Okay, so then we're also going to go sleep 60. That's going to save 60 seconds. And then we're going to cat that foo file. So we're going to hit that. It's going to wait 60 seconds, and then it's going to cat the foo file. And we're going to see if my cron tab that was supposed to run ended up putting in a date statement into this file called foo. So we'll let that run for 60 seconds. And then once we're done with that and we see this, I'm going to talk a little bit about some access rules as far as controlling user access to being able to use crontab. So anybody have any questions while we wait the rest of this 60 seconds for this thing to go? And there we go. So you see, waited the 60 seconds, then it went and looked at the file foo, looked to see what was inside of it, and you see that there is a date statement in there. And that is because the cron job that we had set up actually ran and did the date statement. We could also go and look at this file too if we wanted to. So we could, if we just ls, we see that the file foo is there. And again, we can just cat foo. Right, so. And then that will continue to, that cron tab will continue to edit that or update that with date statements. So I don't really need it to do that. So we can go back in here and go, and I'm going to comment that out. So we're going to put that there with the pound sign, and then we can control exit. Yes, we're going to save it. Yes, that can be the name. Okay, cool. As far as the access list that allows you to do that, it's etc cron allow, and that might not be there. Yeah, so if that's not there by default. That would be something that you would have to add. Then the system is going to default to looking at the deny list on that. So that's cat etc cron dash deny. And if that's not there, then that means that pretty much all users have access to the cron tab at that point. So that is what it is. And if we wanted to lock it down, then we could go about and create those files and do that. Let's see. I think that's it with crontab. And so the last thing that I wanted to talk about today is another systemd utility, and that is using something called at. And so with cron, we were looking at setting up a way to schedule different types of scripts or jobs to run periodically at different intervals. And it would be something that you'd want to be doing continuously, right? Whether it's every hour or every week or once a month, but it would be something where the job would be happening, you know, at least periodically over and over and over again. What the at command allows you to do is schedule a job or schedule a script to run or a command, but it's only for that one instance, right? So you don't necessarily need to go and edit create a cron job for it. It's just going to use the at command, and you're going to set it up to do something at a specific time period in the future. So we can go ahead and take a look at that and how at is used pretty much for one-time jobs. So we're going to go echo, which means it's just going to print this out to the screen, or it's going to do an action. Touch foo at now plus 1 minute. Okay. And then at q let's see if that is Let me try that again. Echo touch foo, and then pipe at now plus 1 minute. Okay, and then we're not. Okay, there we go. We're seeing the job number 3 right there, but we're going to sleep 60. So we're going to let sleep ls foo. So now we're going to let it. We're going to hold off on that for 60 seconds, and then it's going to list the foo folder. And what this should have done is pretty much it was just going to go out and touch the file foo. I believe that's what it was going to do. And we should see that the date of when it was updated is relatively recently, as in within that time period. And then yeah, I think that will be it really for at. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's just scheduling to do something a little bit ahead in the future. Okay. And there we go. And then foo is there. So if we slash l foo 1646, it is 47 right now. So yeah, that was just a minute ago. Yep. So same thing with at. It's just like cron from the perspective of that it has access or allow lists. In this case, I don't believe that there are something for allow, but there is for deny. Now let's go sudo cat etc at.deny. And pretty much these are the users that can't use the at command. So, and that's what it defaults to. If it doesn't have an allow list, then it defaults to looking at what's at the deny, and if it's on the deny, then it doesn't let it happen. Yeah, I think that is pretty much all of the stuff that I wanted to cover today. I'm looking at my notes. So we hit on startup scripts and stuff like that, both with init and also systemd. We talked about how to view processes, restart processes, check the status of processes with systemd. We looked at moving processes or jobs into the foreground and the background. With FG and BG, we talked about what was the other thing that we talked about with that? It was screen and tmux, right? Yeah, so being able to do that. Then we talked about scheduling tasks or jobs with cron jobs, and then also using the at command. So yeah, that was a lot of stuff. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and drop those in the comments right now. I'm gonna move back over to my primary screen and have another drink and see if anybody has any comments or questions. And if nobody has anything, then I appreciate folks dropping in and having fun, asking a few questions as we went along. I got a bunch more of the Linux labs to go through, so we'll definitely get those. I have another pen test, not another pen test plus, excuse me, another Try Hack Me room that we're doing with on Wednesday, so we're gonna get that information out there. Probably put that out on Monday as far as what we're doing and the time and all that type of stuff. So yeah, please smash the like button and subscribe and all that good stuff. Hope everybody has a wonderful weekend.